guys and gals, what's up? It's NihonTiger and welcome back to Build It Yourself. Today, we're looking at a skull, but we're actually going to be talking about fire. And not just, fire spread and all the bad things about it, but how to use fire as kind of a lighting source and perhaps even a little bit of an enhancement for your builds. Like, for example, taking this skull and making it even spookier. So first, to understand how to build with fire, let's talk a little bit about fire itself. Now, this actual fire, I guess you could call it a block. It doesn't look like it's a block at all, but it is a block, and it is kind of the mortal enemy to all builders besides, creepers being a jerk, and occasionally the Enderman, but mostly fire is kind of the bad thing. It burns down your houses, it sets your trees on fire, it takes that giant sheep that you made out of the wool that you spent 6 hours working on and just makes it go poof in an instant. But fire itself is actually a block that requires an open air block to exist. It doesn't exist if you obviously if I take this and try and do that and set the block here in the middle on fire, that's not going to work. The other thing to remember too is no matter what you do, let's say go ahead and take these oak planks out, and I set them next to that. The fire will spread to the oak planks. Even if I had the foresight to go ahead and, throw a fire resistance potion on there. Yep, see, there it goes, bye-bye. Doesn't do anything. Okay, so when we're dealing with fire blocks, the first thing we have to know is about fire spread. Fire spreads in a certain specific area of adjacent combustible blocks. It's the easiest way to explain it. So it spreads from one fire block, to a block in any direction down or sideways, including diagonally, or 4 blocks above. So this little shell here is made completely of wood, but it's not catching on fire because we're in creative mode. It's catching on fire because there are no blocks that it can spread to that are adjacent. So if I went ahead, and I'm not going to do it, but if I put a wood block right here, or here, or here, or here, or anywhere above this fire, up 4 blocks, so 1, 2, 3, 4. So basically up to this line right here, if I put a block above that, like right, say, here, it would spread up there and catch on fire. And really, this is something that when you're working with fire, you don't want to use anything that's flammable or combustible because it's really just going to be more of a pain in the butt. You have to have all this empty area around it. Now, at a non-flammable block, you can go ahead and put wherever you want, your heart's content, and that's mostly what we're going to use to build with when we're talking about building with fire. Oh, and before I forget, the other thing to keep in mind is that this layout, where you have this space around here where it could spread from 1 block on every side and then 4 up, that's for every single little fire block. So if we have, say, a new fire block that's moved, right here, and let's say there's a block here that catches on fire, and there's a block here that catches on fire, this whole safe space, or the whole flammable space, is now also moved over here. It shifts over. So all of these wall blocks would then be vulnerable to being caught on fire. So keep in mind when you're building to make sure that not only do you not have anything that's an open flame right here like this netherrack that's on fire, but that you don't have any flammable blocks in between, say, your open flame and that wonderful wood kitchen you just finished up the other day. So what you're looking at right now is a kind of a palette of all of the combustible blocks that are in the game. Now there's a difference between saying something is combustible and something's flammable, because there are blocks that are flammable, but they're not combustible. And we'll get to some of those in just a moment. But just to kind of walk through here real quick, we have coal blocks, hay bales, all types of wood. So your logs, slabs, planks, and stairs are all flammable. Wool and carpet, grass, vines, leaf blocks, bookcases, fences and fence gates, and TNT. Now TNT obviously does a little bit something different when it combusts. It ignites and explodes. So that's probably the most dangerous of the combustible blocks. Now, as I mentioned, some of the blocks are flammable, but they're not combustible, which is to say they can catch on fire, but they don't burn. Doors are not burnable or flammable or combustible. Certain things are flammable in a sense, but they're not really flammable, and they're definitely not combustible. So, for example, chests are not flammable, but they can very briefly have a flame block that appears above them, and the flame actually in that one tick, there's a very, very small chance that it can go ahead and spread. So you probably just want to make sure that you keep the your chests away from any open flame. It's probably a good idea anyways. I'm not really thinking of a reason that you would need to put a chest near a flame for any reason. And this guy right here, obviously, is a sign. Like the chest is not flammable, is not combustible, and it will not actually spread any fire. Yeah, you are invincible, aren't you? You just enjoy that. So there are two blocks that can be set on fire, but won't combust. One of them is the crafting table. As you can see there, the crafting table is on fire, but is not burning. Now, the most likely cause of your crafting table catching on fire is, let me see here. See if I can grab one real quick. Oh, it's going to be in there, miscellaneous. If you have a lava source that's right next to a crafting table, the way that the lava source checks for blocks to ignite, it's more likely than not that's where it's going to happen. It's not because of that little particle there. That won't do it. It's a totally different situation that we'll explain in a moment relating to fire spread and lava. But your crafting tables can catch on fire, and the fire can spread from crafting tables to other flammable, combustible blocks. So be careful where you put your crafting tables. And of course, the other block that is flammable but not combustible is good old netherrack. Now, netherrack is the wonder brick from the nether that is pretty much ubiquitous down there. Not going to have to worry too much about finding it. You just set it on fire, it stays on fire, rain doesn't put it out. The only thing that puts it out is either water or you putting it out yourself with your hand. One or the other. But this is pretty much the block that most people will use when they're building with fire because it's the easiest block to use. Keeps your fire on forever, you don't have to worry about it going out, and it's fairly easy to find large quantities of it, so it makes a perfectly good use. But how could we forget an oldie but a goodie, the old flowing lava pillar? Now, if you've watched any old Minecraft video, if you watch someone who's done their first, Minecraft Let's Play whenever, you've probably seen something like this. Someone takes their lava bucket, they put it up in the ceiling, it flows all the way down to I guess you could call this a receptacle. Basically these 4 blocks, and then there's an open space here in the middle, so the lava flows directly down here, provides a nice light source. It also does wonders for killing off hostile mobs. But this too, all this lava stuff has its own potential issues when it relates to fire spread. So what you see below is a visual representation of fire spread as it relates to a single stationary block of lava. Now there's a whole bunch of complex ways that lava decides, where it's going to spread fire, and it's incredibly complex. If you would like to take a look at it, it's on the Minecraft wiki, and there's 3 different things that lava can do to spread fire. But basically what you need to know as far as building is that there are just a few areas where you can not build around lava. The way it kind of is set up is it's got a funny little cone around it where it basically will spread to anything within 2 blocks diagonally or just straight up and down. So the area where it's not safe to build, I'm going to put right here. Oh, and by the way, I should mention too, if I do this, it actually makes all of these blocks safe because the way fire spread works is that it has to detect an open block for it to spread from lava. But basically, all of these blocks right here, where the netherrack are blocks that can catch fire due to fire spread. At least if my understanding of it's correct. As well as potentially all of these blocks up here. So that's kind of a rough look at where the the lava fire can spread to. It's a little less complex than, say, the old fire spread over there where it can go up to 4, since it can only go up to 2, but it can spread a little bit wider as well. So that's something that if you're using lava, you have to be really, really careful of, just to make sure that you don't accidentally set your whole house on fire with a lovely, lovely little pool of lava that you built in there for some reason. Maybe you have a weird toilet, I don't know. So now that I've wasted so much of your time just talking about fire spread, what not to do, and how to be careful around it, let's actually use some fire in creative ways to create some unique elements and interesting lighting around perhaps your base or wherever you want to build it. So, of course, one of the basic ways to do it would be to simply take a netherrack block, place it behind a wall, a non-flammable wall, mind you, and put some iron bars over it. Makes it look nice and toasty, nice and creepy too, actually. But let's say we want to do something a little bit different than this. We like this idea, but we want to do something a little bit more than just, say, having one little bit of fire behind a little bit of iron fence. I think we can do that. So what we've come up with here, just as a rough idea, is a giant stone lantern. Now you can have this hanging from your ceiling, you can have it hanging off of a giant post or wherever you want to do it. But it's fairly easy to put together. It doesn't require a whole lot. Your lighting source here is just a single block of netherrack. And of course you can always scale this up, make them bigger, make the circles bigger, make them gigantic if you want to. It's all up to you. But you've also got the option of, with the flame at least, of having the bars up here. You can have no bars and have it open. Just really depends on what kind of design you're looking for. I prefer having the iron bars here and having them connect to kind of the open top here, because you also get, what's really cool with the flame is you also get these smoke particles that rise up out of the top of the lantern. It looks really spiffy and I like it. You can also change the height if you want to. If you want to make this, say, too high, I wouldn't make it 1 high. It looks really, really weird 1 high. It looks very small and squatty. Even too high, it looks a little bit kind of more of a cube than a rectangular lantern. You can also go ahead and use lava here, but with the lava I would recommend, just for safety's sake, even though, again, we're using the exact same idea that we used over there, where we have one source block draining down into a hole down here, I would just still use the iron bars here. You can also change the iron bars out with these posts if you want to. I'm not quite a fan of that, but experiment and figure out what you like. But I would just use this because it looks a lot nicer. It doesn't look as nice when you take out these iron bars. It's also more of a hazard for things to kind of run into or fly into. So at least this way, you don't have to worry about catching yourself on fire one day. Here's another cool idea design that I came up with, but you're probably wondering, hey Nihon, why you've got these logs down here? Aren't they flammable? Well, you would be right. Under normal circumstances, this would be flammable, but I've actually gone ahead and added a little bit of a secret buffer here. In this case, I used the netherrack because I had it on me, but any block here that is not air is a good enough block to keep the fire from spreading down to your... Let me grab that, put that back. But it's a good enough buffer to keep this from spreading down to your post here. So once you have this buffer, like with the little fire spread demonstration over there, you can kind of build with your heart's content to it. I even originally had this attached to a wall, so you could have, say, let's put this here just so we have something to attach it to. You could do that and just have this attached to the back side of a wall here, like let's see, just build a quick wall. Obviously cobble, you don't want to use your whole wall cobble, but something like that. You could have just have the thing hanging off the side here, and maybe you wouldn't have it that high. You might want to have it this high, and then figure out what you're going to do with that on the back side. I don't know, but it's just ideas to play around with. There's a lot of different designs you can do, but once you have a good idea on how to safely use some fire, you can come up with a lot of creative ways to kind of create these, I guess, giant wall sconces or something like that. Is a lot you can play around with once you're safe from fire spreading and destroying everything, right? But let's kind of be honest. If we're going to build with fire, we want to go really big. And the best way to do that is to kind of create something I like to call a fire pit. Now, for example, we have this lovely tower that we're making with a lip around it. And we're going to use the lip here to kind of hide all the netherrack that we're going to put in here to create the illusion that we have a giant pit of fire. Well, we actually do have a giant pit of fire, but it's going to make it kind of look like it's not so much a bunch of netherrack on fire, but more a deep mawing hole that's got nothing but fire inside of it. So how exactly can we set this up to create that illusion? Well, there's a couple of ways to do it. So the first idea you probably have come up with is to set up a giant pyramid of netherrack and set the whole thing on fire. Well, that's pretty good, but it does create a bit of a problem. Now, the smoke particles hide it, but let's go ahead and change our video settings. Let's say we have particles to minimal. Aha, now we see our problem, right? The netherrack and all flammable blocks that aren't wood only light on the top. So you can see the sides here, and you can tell that it's netherrack and not necessarily flame. Now the smoke kind of obscures it a little bit, but even when we're doing it that way, there's a little bit of obscurity with it. Especially when you look at it kind of from the top side here, it looks really obvious that you just piled a bunch of netherrack on there. It doesn't really look the best. Let's try a different way. In this case, we've kind of flipped everything around and gone with a pit instead of an actual pyramid. Now, it does create the same problem from the top, but if you're down here in the actual fire, it looks pretty nice. Except there's another problem. Yep. Can't see anything besides this first ring when you're taking a look at it from the outside. So it loses a lot of its kind of impressiveness. Let me go ahead and turn particles back on. And again, the smoke kind of covers things up a little bit, but it doesn't even look as impressive with the smoke because the smoke particles in the middle are not reaching even the first layer of fire. So it looks a little less impressive. There's a third option we may want to try that perhaps is the most obvious of them all, but it's worth investigating, right? So in my many years of building experience, the 2 or 3 years I have of doing this, the way I've found that always works the best for a fire pit is to simply build it straight. So we can go ahead and just take out this middle row. You can see that it's a flat top across here. What this does is it takes away the problem of the pyramid, which is that you can see the sides of it and that it doesn't look as nice from up top. If we go ahead and let's actually turn off video settings this time. Go to minimal, and that gets rid of that. So you can still see the tops of the blocks. It's not quite completely gone, but it looks a little more uniform. You don't have to worry about seeing the sides of the blocks anymore, and it looks really nice when you're looking at it from angles because you can't see any of the other blocks. It all just looks like flame, and it looks really nice too with the smoke. So it's kind of a best of both worlds. It's not the most ideal thing. Obviously, if you want a really pronounced looking fire, you want to go with the pyramid. But for most people's builds, I would suggest 99% of the time that you just build it flat across the top like this, set the whole thing on fire, and then just let it be. It looks really nice. It looks kind of good from every angle. Don't really have to worry about it too much. There's no blocks poking out since the sides of the blocks are hidden by each other. And it gives you the very nice aesthetic that you're looking for a giant fire pit. So that's about it when it comes to building with fire and some of the very basic things to remember and some kind of basic ideas to play around with. There's so many other ideas I can go into. I could do a whole nother video on this probably if people have any questions, especially about building with fire. I just thought I'd hit up some of the basic ideas that I've had with some of my builds in the past. And really, the big thing with fire is to have fun with it, but make sure not to do anything near wood or wool or leaves or any of those other blocks I mentioned that catch on fire really easily because you don't want to burn your house down. If you have any questions, on your own end, probably try a creative mode server first, or creative mode single player world before doing it in your survival world so that you don't destroy everything. And keep in mind too, if you have fire spread off on your multiplayer server, you probably still want to build as if fire spread was on, because you never know. I've had servers I've been on where this fire spread off thing has been toggled back on and people have lost stuff that's been burned down. So it's always better to be safe than sorry. But thanks for watching Build It Yourself, everybody, and I'll be back pretty soon with some more tips and tricks and perhaps a build or two that you can use in your Minecraft survival worlds. So until then, happy building. Hey guys and gals, what's up? It's NihonTiger and welcome back to Build It Yourself. Today I want to talk a little bit about fire. Not necessarily fire spread so much and be careful with it. It does matter a little bit. But building with fire. Yes, because you can actually build with fire. It's not the mortal enemy of everything that you have to have. And plus, it can take something like this spooky skeleton skull and... oh, damn it. Hey guys and gals, what's up? It's NihonTiger and welcome back to Build It Yourself. Today, we're going to talk a little bit about not an actual building block, but a non-entity block, or a kind of a... It is a block, but it's hard to